Do you hate real estate investing as much as Ian does? I know that's a bold statement coming from the mouth of somebody with $50+ million in real estate holdings, maybe even more. But in all fairness, there's a lot of aspects of real estate investing that I just don't like as well. And I think a lot of viewers and a lot of our audience and a lot of other real estate investors probably have aspects inside their business and their real estate investing ventures that they just don't like, because you can't like everything. Although real estate investing is a great asset class and a great investment vehicle, we're going to go through 3 things that we hate about real estate investing.
Yep. Everyone out on the internet loves to tell you how great real estate investing is, but we need to watch out for these 3 things. And I think we should just jump right into it. So let me give you my number 1 point that we hate about real estate investing. And that's the illiquidity that you create in your asset. And you're going, well, what the heck are you talking about? But what I'm talking about is you do all this sweat equity, you do all this hard work, you might buy an asset for 50 cents on the dollar. Let's say you spend $50,000, you're all in, start getting rent, you start getting cash flow, but this thing's worth $100,000. It's hard to access that $50,000 of additional equity to go out and utilize it to improve your portfolio. And that's one of the toughest things. On a small scale, it doesn't hurt as bad, but you start looking at $50,000 or $50,000 or $1 million or $2 million in some of these commercial assets. You're like, oh my God, I got to unlock my equity. And that's where the velocity of capital comes into play.
And you got to remember that if you have cash flow, you can usually turn that into cash. And if you have cash, you can turn that into cash flow. And that's similar to what Ian is describing, because let's say you sink in a bunch of cash into a property, or you have a lot of equity into a property, you could figure out a way to turn that illiquid asset, can't even say it, into cash by getting bank leverage, getting a bank loan, getting a partner to put up capital. There's ways in order to leverage that equity to get capital. So it's not completely illiquid, but what Ian's stating, which I do agree with, is you might have $1 million worth of equity, you don't have $1 million worth of cash, because that particular asset class. And it also depends on the type of real estate asset that you're lending in, right? As a lender, I might have an asset of a loan that I put capital in, and I can, in essence, sell that note, right? Or I could leverage that note. So there's a lot of different ways to, in essence, turn an illiquid asset into something liquid, where you can get your hands on that cash. And also in real estate investing in general, if you have a short-term strategy and not a long-term strategy, you'll have an equity event through some sort of refinance or some sale. But in general, that is one big thing that we hate about real estate.
And I'm sure some people are going to challenge us in the comments saying you can refinance and you can do all these other things. But guess what? You have a $10 million asset and you can only leverage with the bank 65 or 70%. You still have $3 million of illiquidity that you cannot access. And we all know, you guys know, Jason and I are huge fans of Warren Buffett, and he talks about never selling any stocks that he buys, right? He's a holder, but there's a big difference between the private markets and the public markets. So, as we've discussed on some of our other videos, always looking at your portfolio, finding assets that you can create liquidity with to continue to improve your real estate and portfolio is the best thing you can do. So,
all right, what's the next thing you hate about real estate?
I think everybody can agree on this point, and I'm just going to cut right to it. I know some of them will be watching, but I hate our tenants. I can absolutely hate our tenants. Sure, we have good ones, we have bad ones, we have everything in between. But if you do not build your portfolio properly, you can very easily end up in a situation where you hate all of your tenants.
And that's a funny statement when, in essence, you're saying you hate all your customers, you hate all your clients, you hate everybody that whips out their checkbook every month to hand you their hard-earned money for you to put it in your greedy bank account. But that being said, that statement is, I think, a statement that anyone who ever has owned rental properties in the past have probably stated that, hey, my tenants are driving me crazy. Well, guess what? Would you rather them not drive you crazy and have that building or that unit vacant? Probably not. So be careful what you wish for. But I do get it in general that, a lot of landlords, a lot of real estate investors, and a lot of people in general think their customers and clients are a little bit of a headache. But it's good to kind of be, flip flop that statement to know that I don't really hate them, right?
No,
They're fine.
Well, let's take it one step further. How do you prevent yourself from hating your tenants? You could have the best tenants in the world and still end up hating them because you don't have checks and balances in place. You don't have systems and processes in place. If you take the time to build those things out, you take the time to buy the asset classes that you want to deal in the way the tenants communicate with you. So let's think about that. You storage tenants, a lot of stuff happens online. Residential tenants, you got a lot of red tape to deal with, but some people really, really like that. Commercial tenants, you might not need to deal with them, but the billing process can be crazy. Building the right systems in place and buying the right asset class that you want to deal with is ultimately what's going to make your tenants happy with you. And if you really don't like tenants because you're like, oh my God, I don't like any of that, then you need to find someone who syndicates real estate deals and never have to worry about talking to the tenants, right? Jason, I'm sure, can give you guys a real life study because I'm going to put him on the spot right here. But he hated dealing with his tenants, and ultimately he winds up investing with us because he doesn't want the headaches of owning the real estate. So,
no doubt, I believe that I'm a better lender than I am an owner of real estate, and there's pros and cons of actual both. But you got to figure out what works best for you and what you like more or less. Some people like developing properties and have that sense of craftsmanship and ownership. That didn't do much for me. I like working with sophisticated real estate investors and helping them with their financing needs and lending them money so they could do they could do the heavy lifting and hopefully make a lot of money on their transactions. All right. So number 3.
In third position is the time for transaction. And you guys might be saying, well, single family, I could do something in 3 days. You're right. That could be a bad thing. Those of us in the commercial space, it can take 3, 4, 5, 6 months to close a deal. That's equally as bad, right? Because you're exposed to the market over this long period of time. Even just owning and holding a piece of real estate can take long from buy to sell, right? You might not be able to sell something so quick. The one thing about real estate is those transactions take a lot more time if you're going to be the owner and operator of the property. Jason, as a lender, he gets into it a little bit shorter time frame, but he watches the time transactions and how things are changing, and markets change every single day. So the longer you're exposed to the market, the worse you can be. And the ones that take short periods of time, you got to have your blockers up saying, hey man, something's not right. This thing's closing way too fast. All right, let's take a deep breath. Let's make sure title's in place. Make sure everything's squared away. So for us, time for transactions kills us not only on the buy side because we want to get in there and get it done, but on the sell side too. It's like, oh my God, please let's just get this thing to the closing table and get it closed. I don't need any delays because I don't want to be exposed to some horrific market that's potentially on the horizon.
Have you ever heard the saying in real estate, rush, 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 wait? And that's usually the case in so many real estate transactions. I get a property under contract. I'm ready to go. I get my lender to rush. I get the title company to rush their title order, and everything's kind of ready to go. And then all of a sudden there's a holdup and you wait. It's like, we actually need a few more days. The seller needs a few more days to move out of the property or whatever the case is. And again, some of this stuff differs between residential and commercial. I certainly do agree with it. But like going back from Ian's comment, related to times, it could be good and bad. Some of these transactions could be a long time delay, and it's like, I don't want to underwrite this deal and wait a year before I can close on a transaction. And on the other side, on the residential side, you might look at this as like, hey, the only way I'm ever going to get this deal under contract and make money on it is if I can close this week or tomorrow or the next day. And then potentially you have to do something that you're uncomfortable with because you have to go out there and potentially try to raise capital for it, find a buyer for a deal. So that's definitely something. Yeah, guys. So these are the 3 things that we hate. And I say we loosely because I think these are Ian's hates. But that being said, like, I think everybody can relate to that, including myself. And again, everything's different depending on what niche, what strategy, what line of real estate investing you're in. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, we'd appreciate it if you could smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys on the next video.